go. All right, so I think most of you know me, right? So I'm Jenny Washington. I'm one of the implementation managers here at Passageways. Got my OnBoard swag on today for Friday, a little casual here. And so this is the last day I'm doing the live series. So this is the third week. And I know many of you have done all three, including like today would be your third. So I like to try to make these as personalized as I can, but I have to like squeeze a whole bunch of content in. So be prepared. You're going to hear me talk a lot. But some groups are more interactive than others, and that's fine. So I've set you guys all so you can talk. If you want to unmute, you can use the chat, you can use the Q&A, whatever you're comfortable with. For those of you that have been to the basics or the core training, these are the things that I've covered. If you didn't attend one of those, I would really strongly have you consider there might be some things that you missed, right? So you may be, okay, we've done meetings, you know, we have some resources. I've heard from people that have attended that they definitely are picking up little tips and tricks and best practices. So if you didn't register and you don't have the recording of one of those on-demand sessions, I'm happy to send that over to you. If you want to have it, just put something in the chat and I'll get that to you. And then, so today is part 2. So the advanced training I've had to kind of break into 2 to focus on all the different features. So today we're doing actions, and you should all have the actions in your menu, and that consists of the approvals, which would be like voting, surveys, so from informal polls to kind of formal assessments, spanning that spectrum, and then electronically signing. So that's what we'll be covering today. And I'm gonna jump into my demo site, but before I do that, I'm gonna launch just one poll here. If you don't see it on your screen, you might have to, if the polls is flashing, you might have to click it to open it. So I just am interested to know, based on the approvals, surveys, e-signatures, and then the other stuff, messenger and tasks and advanced permissions, what you guys might be wanting to roll out that you haven't. And that'll help me kind of prioritize. Cool. Okay, so we've got one person that hasn't been able to vote. If you want to do it, and you can click on the polls if it's not showing up on your screen. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and close it. There we go. Thanks so much. Okay, so it looks like the majority are thinking maybe the voting piece, and then e-signatures, and then I'll certainly touch on the surveys and the polls. And then for tasks, I'll follow up with you, or if you saw that session, thanks for mentioning tasks. That was covered on Wednesday. So I'm going to stop that, and I'm going to switch over to my demo portal. All right, so let me just double check that it's showing. Yes, okay. So you guys should be seeing, I'm in OnBoard. I'm in my Boilermakers demo organization. I'm a Boilermaker. That's the mascot for Purdue University. So I'm here in Indiana, and I'm a native here. I live in Lafayette, but West Lafayette is the big college town for Purdue University, where I worked for 11 years, and I have my 2 degrees from. So my demo site is called Boilermakers. And so over in the left, we're going to be really focusing on the actions, but I'm also going to touch a little bit on the dashboard, because you can incorporate actions that are open on your dashboard. So I'm going to go into actions. And since the majority of you said that you were interested kind of in the voting or the approvals, I'm going to really kind of walk through this one step by step. And then we'll do e-signatures and then surveys. So a couple things with the approvals tool and any of these tools in the actions. They can either stand alone, so you can use them in between meetings, during meetings, at the start of a meeting. So they can stand alone, or you can link the action to an agenda item. So I'll show you that as well. So you have some options here in terms of how you want to use it. And really the most value really is if you can leverage this even in between your meetings, right? Some of you have meeting cycles that are meetings far and few, between. So you have to really be thoughtful about how to keep people engaged with OnBoard. So anytime you have something, a communication, an activity, anything that you need to communicate with your stakeholders, remember you have OnBoard, and ask yourself, if you can remember, kind of pause and say, can I do this with OnBoard, right? Don't do an email vote, use the tool. It works with the OnBoard app. So if you need to remind your stakeholders, your members, that they have the ability to download the app, you can incorporate that into maybe a future upcoming communication. And then of course they can access it from the browser. So, and voting, as you can imagine, really can be anything from, and I've got some examples here. It could be approving your minutes, or if you have a consent agenda where you're bundling several things, right? I think some groups with the pandemic have actually attempted to move to consent agendas to help them keep their meetings shorter and more, focused on the things that need deliberated and action, decisions. So if you haven't moved to a consent agenda, you might want to think about that, where you can kind of bundle everything. So easily doing minutes and consent agenda approvals is one use case for approvals. You can also do nominations, as far as voting in new or returning members in different roles, officer roles and things like that. What else do we have? We have, here was a group that did a job description for their organization. If you're doing purchasing or investing and you need to have decisions on voting before you move forward with something like that. For financial institutions, loan approvals is huge. So those are just some examples. If you guys have, thanks Liz, if you have if you want to just call out or put something in the chat, like a certain type of approval, I can use that as an example. Let me know, and I'll watch for that. But to get started, you click on add. So approvals is the first of the three. So you just click on add, and then you get this template. I'm going to minimize my menu over here. Okay, so we're going to walk through kind of from top to bottom here. So really be thoughtful about the title that you give, because this list, if you use the approval tool, is going to grow over time unless you delete them periodically. So if there's a filter over here on the left, there's a filter or a search. So the better you can be about giving it a title that is affiliated with a fiscal year or a meeting date or a person, right? Be specific. Okay, so I didn't see any examples come through, so it doesn't really matter what it would be. We'll just do something like nomination of new board members, or new board member, let's say. Okay, so the next thing down would be the start date and the end date. So this is really important, and this is something that when groups experiment on their own, which I love, I'm a person that likes to do things on my own, they assume they have to fill it in, and you do not. Okay, so the start date is great because you can actually, let's say it's 9 o'clock at night and I have time to do it now, I'm doing this, but I don't want it to open until a specific day or time. That could be tomorrow morning. You could also set this to start at or open at the beginning of your meeting, or you could estimate when you think you'll get to a certain agenda item, what time that will be. So if you choose a start date and time, so if I choose today at 5 p.m., this will automatically open for me. So right now, up in the top right, it says it's in the draft status. And these are the different status that it will walk through. So it'll open automatically. Similarly, if you put an end date and time, it will close. And that would not be good if it closes and you don't have all the responses that you need or the votes that you need. So I always caution groups, be really careful if you're going to put an end date in there that you understand it closes and you cannot reopen it right now if it's closed. So I would hate for you to get in a bind. Okay, so then moving down to the motion and the second. This is something that whoever created this as the administrator has to enter that information in. We're trying to think about how we can improve this so that perhaps, let's say you're using this in between a meeting and you want someone to be able to make the motion and say they're making the motion and put their name in. Right now, the administrator, if you want this information, you have to fill it in. So you have to think about how are you going to capture that, especially if it's being done kind of in a virtual situation where people have it open and they can just the first come, first serve. So these are optional, and what the intended information in is someone's name, right? So if you start to type someone's name, if they are part of your member list, it's going to recognize them. Otherwise, if it's not Dean Floyd, it's Dean Smith, it's okay. I can still put their name in, okay? The description is also optional. So if it doesn't have this little asterisk like the approval title does, that means it's optional. So this could be, maybe I don't have an end date, but I do want them to respond by a certain time. It's pretty typical to put something like, please cast your vote by, whatever date and time. And if you have questions, please contact whatever, name and email. Now, I've also seen it be like if it's like property or a loan or something, maybe you're putting in other details like the value of something or just more background details. But you have the opportunity to attach more than one or more supporting documents. So before we get there, this is the approval tool. This is the voting tool. So it comes with voting buttons, but if they also need to sign, so if the legal or general counsel says, for this type of a vote or an action, we also need their signature, then all you do is check that box. It will require them to sign as well as cast their yes, no, or abstain vote. And then there's an opportunity for them to put their signature in their profile of OnBoard. So if they have it, you can go ahead and allow them to use it. Otherwise, if you leave it unchecked, it's going to prompt them for a fresh signature, even if they have their signature stored. So I'm going to make a note to make sure and go back and show you where you can do this signature piece, because that obviously will be important as well for the eSignature tool. Okay, so then we've got the permissions. You'll notice the downloads is grayed out. The downloads will become active when we finalize this. So we want to set the permissions. I always recommend that you test something beforehand. So the way that you can test is when you click the edit permissions, you get this permission flyout that I believe you're familiar with. You can search at the top, there's a filter. So you can search for yourself. And by default, because you created it, you're going to be in the admin role. But you can actually move yourself into a dual role called admin and voter, which will allow you to test. So go ahead and think about doing a test. And obviously you could test with someone else, right? You could coordinate with someone and say, hey, will you be my guinea pig? And as long as they're a user, you can set them in the voter role. So over here, I have some other test accounts. If you don't have a test account, you could also give yourself in the directory. If you have a personal email address, you could add yourself in the directory with like a test account. So if I just otherwise click, it's making people voters. So I'm going to save that. And then, so if this is related to some kind of a nomination, maybe I'm putting in some kind of recommendation that came from the nominating committee ahead of time, or their bio or something. So I'm just going to randomly pick something to attach here. And where do I want to go? Demo. I don't think I have anything really relevant, but we'll just pick something here. And again, I can add more things if I want. I can also rename it. So over here, when you hover over the document, these three dots give you access to this sub menu where I can also rename it and take something out there. And then you have to decide who do you want to see the results. So as the results and the responses are coming in, the default here is that only the administrator or administrators, because you can have more than one, and it's automatically checking both graphical, which would be being able to see graphical results, or roll call, which would actually tell you who voted which way. So the roll call is pretty important, especially if you're trying to make sure a certain type of a person in a role like a chair cast their vote, or who you're missing. If it's okay for everybody that's voting to see each other's responses, so sometimes you want it to kind of be anonymous, if you will, where you don't want one person's vote to influence another's. There are other times where it might be appropriate for people to see each other's votes. So you can make that decision. And then here's the really cool thing is, because this can be a standalone, it can be self-contained, where you can enable discussion. So now you can have the materials they need to look at, the ability to cast a vote, the ability to have discussion, all in one thing. So that's why it can stand alone by itself, even if you're not doing this in conjunction with a meeting. So I've basically got all of my settings here. I'm gonna go ahead and say allow to use my saved signature. Now, I could let it sit here and at 5 o'clock it would open, or if I didn't use this, or even if I have a date filled in, that doesn't mean you can't still manually open it right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this so we can walk through what it looks like to the voter, and then also the important steps of kind of closing and finalizing this, and then seeing the results. So when you open, this is another thing that people that do a little bit of experimenting don't realize. I clicked to open it and it said, do you want to open the approval? When I say yes, it will automatically send an email to whomever is in a voter permission. Okay, and I see that a question came in about the supporting documents staying archived. Yes, so over here on the left, I'm in my approvals. These are all the approvals. And down here are the ones that are finalized. And you can kind of see how cool it is, where it gives you a really quick glance. Did it pass? Thumbs up. Did it fail? There's a tabled, which is like a circle with a line through it. And if I go to anything that's finalized, as long as you don't delete it, you can come into anything that you've done in the past that's in the finalized. The materials are attached, and you'll also be able to re-access the downloads, the exportable report. So just keep in mind that this is going to grow and grow over time. But once you've downloaded the results, which I'll show you once we finish this one out, you can decide if you just want to delete the approval and just keep the results. Okay, so I opened it, and I'm going to show you what the email looks like. So bear with me here, because I didn't plan for this in advance. Here's the email. And you'll notice the emails come from Passageways OnBoard. Whoops. And the subject line is approval for, and then whatever I titled it, nomination of new board member is open. Now here in the body, it lists the name of my OnBoard organization, right? To help them recognize that this is affiliated with the work they're doing for the board or the committee. And then it has the button. So they can click on the button, sign in, and then be taken directly to what I'm about to show you next. So that is what the email looks like. As an admin, you don't get the email, right? So that's why I'm saying an email goes out, because you don't receive it. So you might be thinking, wait, how are they going to know? Or assuming that no email did go. So I'm clicking back into this one, and you can see on the left, they're categorized by draft, open, and finalized. So here's the one that's open. It's open here. And now here in the top right, I can switch to the voter view. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat. So over here, for me as the admin, to see what it's going to look like to someone who's in the voter role, I can toggle. This now is the view that my voters will see. So here, any description will show that you typed, any documents, the discussion capability is here, and the voting buttons are here. So I can look at the information. Then I clicked on the document, and you can see that it's shifted, and now it's opening the document on the right. So this is really nice because they can see what they're supposed to be voting on, and then they can quickly come over here and either post something. So let's say maybe in the discussion. So I just clicked on the discussion. Let me go back. Let me go back to the voter view. I'm in the document. I come down here, I'm reviewing it, and I'm like, you know, I have a question. I don't quite have enough information. Whatever the case might be, I'm going to add something to the discussion. So I click the discussion, and maybe I say, I don't know, maybe I don't have enough information. Would you please confirm, sorry, I don't know what this thing is that I have popping up, confirm that, or how the candidate left, like terms they were on with their previous employer, whatever. So anyone else, so I hit send or I hit enter, and now it's posted this. Anyone else who is a voter is going to receive an email that I just posted, right? Because if you're doing this outside of the context of a live environment, you know, how is someone going to know if others are asking questions or posting information that might inform me or change my, make me change my vote? So they're going to get an email anytime someone posts. Also, let's say I said, you know, would you please upload the bio or Vita or resume, whatever. Actually, that does have an A, I don't think. Right? And so as the admin, you would get it and you're like, okay, yeah, I can go add a bio. So you can go in while it's open and go to the supporting materials, and you can go add whatever they're asking for. I'm just randomly grabbing something. And at post, I uploaded the file. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of start to see where this can be a standalone. So, sorry, it keeps toggling between the voter view and the admin view. So I'm reading the information, I've read the comments, I'm ready to cast my vote. I can cast my vote over here. So, and probably, you know, your description would say, you know, making the motion to or resolution to or something, and then they're saying yes. So I check the box that I also need to require the signature, and I have my signature on file, so it's automatically popping it up for me, and I can just quickly add it. If I didn't have my signature on file, I'm going to clear it out. This is what it would look like. It would present them with this open box. If they're doing this from their laptop or computer and all they have is their mouse, that's what they have to use. If they have the mobile app on their smartphone or their tablet, they could use that with their finger or a stylus. So I'll just scribble something there. So now I accepted my vote and applied my signature. So there's a question here, and this is really good. So Kyle's asking, can you require the voters to open the documents before voting? No. No, unfortunately, no. And sadly, you know, one of the things that is important to me to help all of you with understanding the adoption and the engagement of this investment on board is to talk with you and look with you at statistics. And it's shockingly surprising sometimes that, like, I was just on the phone this week with a group and we were looking at some analytics information, and it showed us that while 55 or 60% of the meeting participants had looked at the agenda, the meeting page, like only 40% had opened the book or looked at the materials. And they told me that they had a vote or multiple votes, right? And so for them, they were like, gosh, they're not even looking at the meeting materials and voting. That's scary, or it should be, depending on what you're voting on. So I know, Kyle, I sent you some stuff based on the last time about the analytics and the global admin. You have potentially either within the package that you currently have for OnBoard, or the opportunity to add on the ability to have user-specific activity reporting so that you can know who are your advocates and who are the people that might need more help. And to know, shockingly, if people are not looking at the materials before they're voting or before they're coming to the meeting and you guys are making decisions, and yeah, so no, you can't force them to open it. They can vote without looking at it. I do want to mention, so let me show you how you can sync this to a meeting. So let's say you wanted, during the meeting, you wanted to have live discussion about whatever the approval is, whether it's about new members that are being ratified or something, or whatever the case might be. So maybe you want this approval to only open at the time that the meeting is going on, right? So that's where you can use the start date and the time. And you can go to a meeting, so you can go to your calendar, you can go into a meeting, and wherever the agenda item is that you are talking about that, you can click on the edit. So I'm just, you know, picking any item here, but you would select the edit for that agenda item, and then look for this button called link and action to this section. And then you'll see I have approvals, surveys, and eSignatures, and you can only select one per agenda item. So you might have to have sub-agenda items if you want to have multiple approvals, kind of line item. And then I can search, or, you know, I can find the one that I want, or I can search for it. And I check the box, and now when I go back and I close this over here, you'll see the view approval is sitting here. So that way, maybe you have an opportunity for discussion, but because this is really helpful for capturing the final record, many groups will use this during a live meeting for the simple fact that it's so easy for them to click the buttons, and then you can export the results to help with minutes and record keeping and things like that. So during the meeting, they can click on the view approval, and of course, they're going to be in the voter view. And here's what I tell people that link things to their meeting agenda. You might have participants in your meeting that don't vote, right? So it will benefit you if you think about adding this, if it's okay for everybody to see the supporting documents, but only the subset of people, the voting members, will vote. You're likely going to want to attach the supporting documents to the agenda item, right? So whatever they are, attach them here, but also attach them to the approval, because when the voting members open the approval, they can still click onto the documents and see the documents and vote. So it gives both groups the ability to see the materials, and then the voting members to see the materials side by side while they vote. Cool. I think that's really the voting. So let me know what questions you have because this was, there's other scenarios or use cases. If you have something in mind or a question of like, how would we handle this? Whatever.
Jenny?
That. Yeah.
When going back to when you added a comment, so let's say I'm reviewing and I don't want to vote yet because I have a question or a comment. Does that trigger automatically an email back to the voting group?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Yeah, because, you might be using this in an in-between, like, no meeting environment. So yes, yep.
Okay.
It'll trigger an email. And then for people that have the mobile app, it'll send a push notification.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Great. Okay, so that's the approvals. The same kind of concepts of how you fill out these templates apply across the other action tools. So I'm going to do the eSignatures next. So even if you have DocuSign or Adobe Sign, if one of your goals is to continue to reinforce that this should be the one source of truth, the central hub, the centralized location for your users of OnBoard, then one way to help encourage that is to not use DocuSign or Adobe Sign, but use the eSignature, right? So some of this is within your power to help encourage or continue to give other options. And I think we all know, and I would be guilty of this as well, anytime it's something new is being introduced, unless I'm super excited for some reason and it's going to solve maybe something that is really meaningful to me, a specific problem that I'm thinking of, I'm going to stick with status quo. So if you have those other tools, but you have the eSignature tool, use it to your advantage to help reinforce, and have this investment provide its full benefits. Now, if there are feature gaps, then share those, because we do know that, we're not necessarily competing with some of those more robust tools. So if there's something that you're trying to do that OnBoard cannot do for you, then, please let us know if that's why you're not using the tool. So the eSignature tool very simply is the ability to sign and or initial. And most recently, so think about board like ethics statements or confidentiality, conflict of interest, travel, when we're traveling, travel authorizations, anything like that, anything that needs a signature, the minutes that need to be signed by the chair and the secretary or whomever signs, right? If they're users, they could use the tool. So approving the minutes is pretty common, but here's a board statement of understanding. So let's look at this one as an example. This is a template. You might need to make one per person. So if you want an individual document per person, which is pretty standard with some of these things, then you're going to have to make one e-signature per person. I have recently had groups who are like, yes, we've traditionally had a document that I file away per person, but really what's only important to me as an institution or company or whatever is that I have everybody's signature. So if it's okay that you end up with one document that has everybody's signatures on them, then that would save you a little bit of time. You could then, if you have a one-page document that they are supposed to read, and then normally there would be a place for them to sign and print their name and date. If you have 8, 10, 20, 30 board directors, trustees, regents, whatever they are, make a signature page or 2 signature pages. So now you have a 3-page document where it's the materials they read and then 2 pages for the signatory. And then you can place the signature blocks for all of them. And then you end up with one downloadable document. So you have a couple of options there, but you might need to consult with whomever is approved that form to see if that's okay. So here's one where maybe you were doing a board statement of understanding with the fiscal year, right? And then you would put the name of the person if you want one per person. So you would take this template, set it up, and then copy it. So I'm going to copy this. I'm coming over here on the left. I'm in the eSignatures. I have a bunch of these saved as templates. I'm not going to ever use my template. I'm going to just copy it. So I'm going to hover over it, click the three dots, click copy. Oh, sorry, Kyle, I saw, can voters change their vote when the approval is open? Yes, sorry. Yes, as long as the vote is open. Let me go back to the approvals. I'm sorry, I'm going to jump back real quick because I just saw this question. And actually I didn't finish it out, which happens a lot. And see, here I'm guilty of it. So rewind. Nomination of new board member. We went through all of the people voting. I'm the admin now. I'm seeing the graphical results and the roll call. So who has voted, what percentage, how many people. Once you have the number of votes that you need in order to make the final decision, you'll be able to see that. Then you need to close it out. So while it's in the open status, as people are having discussion or people are casting votes, you can change your vote. So if I even switch back to the voter view, I've already cast my vote down here as yes. I have my history, but I can change my vote to no. In this case, I have to apply my signature again because I have that feature enabled. Now it says my current vote is no, and I have a running tally, right? So if I get influenced or I get new information, then I can change my vote until it's closed. So I'm going to change it back to yes. Okay, as the admin, you're watching for that to come through, whether it's in a live or an in-between meeting situation. And then if you don't have the end date, which again, I caution against the end date because you want to make sure you've got all the necessary votes to make a final decision, then you close it. That is what stops people from being able to change their vote. However, it is not the last step. Many groups stop here. And this is where you're missing an opportunity. So you have to remember with the approval tool, you actually have to change it from closed to finalize. It is at this step, when I click this, that I'm going to actually enter in the final decision. In this case, I'm going to say, yes, it passed. Perhaps someone voted over email, or they weren't going to be in attendance, but somehow it was okay for them to cast their vote. Whatever, you could add additional, so John voted yes over email. Quorum received. I don't even know if that's how you spell it. Okay, submit. Okay, finalized is what makes the downloads visible. Up until this point, the downloads was grayed out. So now I can click the downloads and see the report. And I'm opening it. So it's taking a few seconds here. It's in Word, so if you needed to, you could pin some things or whatnot, but it's gonna have what's the title of my item, if I entered in the motion and second, the open date and the close date, my description, the final vote that I marked passed with any notes that I entered, and then this percentages, as well as the roll call piece with their date and their signature, and then all the discussion as well. All recorded. Sorry, I completely skipped that whole part. Okay. And then that's what then on the right, or the left, excuse me, moves it into this finalize, where you can also see at a quick glance the final result. And if you don't finalize it that day, it's going to mark the decision with a date stamp, right? So if I should have finalized it a month ago and I just, oh shoot, I never finalized that, the day that you finalize directly correlates with what the stamp here is for passed on a certain date. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to come back over to the eSignatures, and I had my template. I didn't use my template. I clicked the three dots and I chose copy, which made this copy here, and it says copy right here. So I'm going to put my name in there. take out the word template. And I would put some instructions if I want. You have to set who's the signer. That's the permissions. I'm going to set myself as a signer. Since I copied it, it carried over the permissions from my template, right? So make sure you always check your permissions if you're copying something, because it carries over the permissions from the item you copied. So I'm just taking everything off except for me, the admin, and making myself in that dual role, admin and signer. I already had the document on the template, so it carried it over, which saves me a little bit of time. So I've got the document, I've got who needs to sign, and now I have to say where do they need to sign. So when I click the edit signature blocks, it's going to open up the document that I've attached and display it to me so that I can then place where they should sign. Now, it's very common, of course, when you're thinking about a traditional document to sign, to have a print name, printed name, a signature line, and a date. You don't need 3 things. You only need 1 line, because the eSignature tool for OnBoard is going to put their signature, automatically put their printed name, and automatically put the date and timestamp. So it consolidates all of that. If I was ready, I could go up to the top right and click finish and open, but I want to go back to the details and just make sure we go over everything else, right? So I didn't put anything in the details. I could please sign by such and such date, contact me for questions. Again, I'm going to allow to sign with any saved signatures they have as part of their profile. And this, if this box stays checked, that means the signer can download a copy of the final executed document. You, as the admin, can always download, once it's done, the final executed document with their signature. So you can choose if they should need to be able to or not. Now, if you are doing this to where, back when I said you might want to have the board statement of understanding and then empty pages where you can put everybody's signature block, and then you end up with one, you probably don't want them to be able to possibly download it if you're doing that. If it's just for them individually, probably okay. Then the other cool thing is down here at the bottom, you can actually tell this to put a copy of it in your resources folder. So you can select a path. So if you want to use this, you have to first create a folder in your resources, and then you can tell it, when this is done, put it in the resources. And you can have a folder that maybe is only permission to you, or to you and a chair, etc. Whomever needs to have access to these. Legal counsel, something like that. So when I choose select the folder path, let's see, I have like signed conflict of interest forms, so I'll just use that one. And I'm going to go ahead and manually open it. I'm going to get an email as the signer telling me I need to sign. And then the other thing too is, let me click around here to make this refresh. There we go. When people log in, if they received an email, most times it's also putting a notification in their notification box here. So here is the notification, the electronic signature is now open. So this mimics what I also would have received via email and also via push notification. Just looking at my watch to see, yeah. So they can click on the notification, they can click on the email, either one. And then I have to switch to my signer role. Very easily, I see here's my document, and here I have to click to sign. It opens up the document, and I scroll through and read. And if multiple people needed to sign, I would only see my box. I don't see other people's signatures or their boxes, or know if there are other signers besides myself. So I click where I'm designated to sign, add my signature. You can also do initials if you want them to also initial things and sign. There's that option as well. Now, I only initially see that at the bottom, I've fulfilled all my signing requests, and I get this green box that tells me I've signed and I'm done. It won't actually show the signature until the admin closes it out. So let me go back to my email for a moment. And I, as the admin, received an email that says signatures are complete. So you're going to have that as your cue to go in and finish it out. Okay. So then you go in, you can go into the actions, or you could have followed the link in the email that would have taken you right to it. Otherwise, you'd have to navigate to it. And then if you want to just double check, did they really sign? Before I close it, then just view the signature blocks again, and you'll be able to see when you scroll that it's green, right? And now you feel, okay, I'm 100% certain I'm gonna close it. So I'm going back up to the status and closing it. And because I'm describing it, I know it feels more lengthy, obvious. This is so fast once you've done one or two. It's just because I'm, going through very granularly and describing it. So I closed it, and now the download is available. So I can click on the download. It's opening a PDF. So even if my document was a Word document, it's always going to download it as a PDF. And here's my signature, and here's where I told you it automatically adds my printed name and a date and time stamp automatically. The other thing is, because I told it to automatically put that in my signed resource folder, I can go over to resources and go into my signed, oops, where's it at? There it is. And okay, so here's one of the things is it puts it in here with the name of the document, but not the title, which is a little bit of a downfall. So I have two that are named the same thing. If I click on this one, the first one, I'll see as I look at it that that one was for Jenny Washington. So you would probably want to rename it and make sure it has the name on it here. So that's the e-signature. Again, it moves really fast when you're, once you've done it a time or two. Any use cases or questions on the e-signature? And I'm thinking to see if there's anything I forgot. So again, this is my e-signature area. It's grouped by draft, open, and closed. So I can still get back to them. Here's the one that I just did down here under closed. You can keep these cleaned out. You can delete them if you've downloaded it and either saved it into your resources or you have it. You don't obviously have to keep it here. So surveys is probably the most dynamic in terms of flexibility. You can use the surveys for, so here's some of the most common things. Doodle polls. Doodle polls is something I didn't know about until I was in education, working in academia, and I learned about this doodle poll, right? So doodle poll is one type of software where you can basically send out to as many people as you want and say, I need your feedback primarily for, we're gonna do this and here are the dates, pick the ones that work for you, right? So you can use the survey tool for something like that. When we're doing in-person meetings, very common use is Rsvps, right? Are you attending the committee meetings? And you can list them. Are you attending the board meeting? Are you coming to the breakfast? Are you going to the golf outing or whatever event, football game? Are you bringing a spouse? Do you have dietary restrictions? So things that you might be, again, Google Docs or other survey tools, SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, all of those work just fine, right? And in fact, sometimes they have additional capabilities, but by and large, we've been able to work with groups to use the survey tool and OnBoard. And again, you're just reinforcing all my activity related to the work I do for your organization or institution comes through from OnBoard. So is there any example that you guys want to see? I've got a pledge form. So I just worked with a group on a pledge form where they're doing it by person and they're putting in to the description what the prior year pledge was, and then asking them to write in their pledge amount, the pledge date, right? So there's different essay long answer, there's check boxes, there's radio buttons, there's Likert scale, like from 1 to 10, or likelihood, right? Or agreement, strongly agree to strongly disagree, and then essay long answer. You can require questions or not. You can add documents to support the question if you need to. Now, one thing is the survey tool and the eSignature tool and OnBoard are distinct. Many times we have forms where we want people to fill things out and sign. And so we have to get a little bit of creative here. So for example, instead of signing, as you can see on the right, we're doing by typing my name below, I pledge, et cetera, et cetera. And then I write my name in. Let me go back to another one that's common for surveys, like a disclosure report. So here, do you have any personal interest that's a conflict? By checking the box below, I certify and acknowledge, and you can make this required. So basically, instead of them signing, you can force them to check a box to certify. And then down here, you can make them write their name and write the date. So there's some creative things you can do in lieu of a wet signature or a electronic signature, with having them name and date and do things like check a box to certify. Another one is very simple surveys after every meeting. So we have here's a really simple meeting evaluation. So I'm switching to the respondent view. And over here's the description. Please complete this short questionnaire at the conclusion of the meeting. 3 things. Were the objectives of the meeting covered to your satisfaction? Rate the length of the meeting, and what are the most important topics we need to cover at the next meeting? 3 questions. 2 required, and this one's optional. You can then link this, like I showed you how you can link to an agenda item, so that in the adjournment area, at the very end, you just set this expectation every time. Just answer these 3 short questions before you leave the meeting. You can set it to open, so it doesn't open until at least the meeting has started, right? You can do the start date where it automatically opens for you. You can have a template that you repurpose every meeting, and then you just get in the habit of setting the start date and linking it to the adjournment. And the important thing though is if you're going to ask people for a survey, that you read it, right? And then you acknowledge or you take action based on the feedback. So of course we want to be thoughtful about not only asking those, but then if several people say that there's an important topic to cover, you know, hopefully you're either covering that or saying why you're not covering that. So you can do a very simple one. You could do a very detailed one. Here's a more detailed one. Asking more details about, was the agenda clear? Was everybody prepared? Was guided effectively? So we're kind of rating the chair. Committee chairs were prepared, so on and so forth. So I have lots of examples if you ever want to, including like evaluations of your president and CEO, performance evaluations, self-assessments. And again, I can help you pick the format the question or translate that over from whatever you're doing today into OnBoard if you want to share those with me. And I do that all the time. I will help you build it. I'll build it for you, whatever you want to help you use this. Okay, well, I told you guys I was going to be talking the whole time, so I delivered on that. Thanks for hanging with me. We've got just a couple minutes left. Hopefully this helped. Let me know if you can think of anything that you'd like for me to show you that I didn't? Or a specific use case that you're curious about? Thanks so much for the feedback. So try it out. I know in the beginning we are so focused, and this is important, right? To focus on kind of baby steps, dip your toes in. If your board group or director group is not already using things digitally, you know, and this is a big change for them, you can start with just the meetings and the resources and the core functionality, but don't forget that you have all of these other useful tools. And one last thing I want to leave you with is on the dashboard. On the dashboard, one of your panels, I'm scrolling, is you can add an actions panel. So if you have open actions, and you can prioritize this, you can put this at the very top of your dashboard. Under your edit panels, you can pick which panels you want and in what order. And then that way, when they land on your dashboard, they also have that reminder. Oh yes, I have this statement of understanding that's due, or whatever that might be. And only the people that need to vote or sign or respond see it on their dashboard. And if you need help introducing this, we have resources. I can help create custom resources. You can do a weekly pro tip for OnBoard on your announcements, like this OnBoard pro tip messenger. We're planning to begin using this tool. Here's step-by-step instructions. Oh yes, okay, question about, yay, Minutes Builder real quick. We have a ever-changing product roadmap, depending on lots of different things, but the meeting minutes is coming. Meeting minutes is gonna be part of a package called Productivity. If you don't know if you're gonna have it, then email me. So I'd have to look at each of you, what package you have, because we've renamed some of the packages as well. So Minutes Builder, very exciting, is coming within the next month or two, so this year. And it's so cool. I'm so excited. You can send your minutes out for approval. You can export them. You can add footers and headers and have an approval workflow and assign action items and make motions with your minutes and do tasks and all kinds of cool stuff. So if you want more info, I can set you up. So let me know. Minutes Builder is coming. Yay. I know, me too. Everybody's excited about it. All right, thanks guys for hanging with me on this Friday. This was the last one in the live series. Everybody will get an email tomorrow, whether you attended, which you did, or those who are gonna be watching this recording. You'll get an email if you registered 24 hours later. And if you want any of the other recordings, shoot me a note and I will get them over to you. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys. Have a good day.